Interesting show for you today. Our first story comes from the Deep South. The 2.5-mile Road Atlanta road race course, to be exact. The event, round 6 of the WERA Formula USA Series. Dennis Torres reports.
The question comes up time and time again in motorsports, how important is the rider in the on-track performance equation? I subscribe to the theory that it's 60 to 80% rider, 20 to 40% motorcycle. Case in point, last Sunday's Formula USA final at Road Atlanta. Scott Russell had one of the Kawasaki Superbikes at his disposal, but it wasn't his usual mount. It belonged to teammate John Ashmead, who has never been able to run up front all year. But on this day, though, racing a strange motorcycle, Russell would substantiate it's the rider and not the bike that makes the difference. In the early going, though, WERA regulars number 88 Mike Harth and number 6 Mike Smith were up front. But before you could say Team Muzzy Kawasaki, Russell was in the thick of things. All the more impressive when you consider the number 22 Ninja is a 750, competing against heavily modified 1100s. On a horsepower track like Road Atlanta, that speaks volumes about the balance of the Kawasaki and the aggressive riding by Russell. He was on the edge every lap around a 2.5-mile circuit. By a handful of laps, the race had come down to a battle between local Georgians Mike Smith, number 6, and Russell. They swapped positions again and again and really gave the fans on hand a demonstration of hard, all-out riding. Both of them cutting through back markers as if they weren't there. Toward the end, though, Russell began to pull away from Smith and in the end took the win by 3.5 seconds over Smith. Mike Harth hung on for third on his Team Mad Dog Yamaha, a good run for the veteran campaigning on a shoestring budget. Mike Smith holds on to the Formula USA standings lead with his runner-up finish. Rich Oliver maintains second spot, finishing 7th at Road Atlanta on the Marlboro Roberts 250 GP entry. Reporting for Motoworld, this is Dennis Torres.
In international road racing, Californian Wayne Rainey took a giant step towards his dream of capturing the 500cc Grand Prix World Championship. The factory Yamaha rider won the Swedish Grand Prix to bolster his standings lead over arch rival and fellow American Kevin Schwantz. Unfortunately for Schwantz, he crashed his Suzuki out of the race and failed to garner any points. Rainey's win and the get-off by Schwantz add up to a big lead for Rainey in the standings. The Suzuki rider was not injured in the fall and will not miss any races. 3 rounds remain, but the season is far from over. A look at the 250 standings shows Spaniard Carlos Cartas leading American John Kosinski by 7 points. Cartas beat Kosinski to the line in Sweden to maintain his standings lead. 3 rounds also remain in this championship series.
Team Suzuki presents
Motoworld set, one of the nicest young men that you'll ever meet, but don't let the boyish good looks fool you, because on a motocross track, this guy is an absolute bear. Team Suzuki's Larry Ward, currently residing in Society Hill, South Carolina. Good to have you with us, Larry.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
You know, I say residing currently in Society Hill, South Carolina, because actually you're from Washington.
Right. I grew up in the Seattle area. I just moved to South Carolina over the last year. I think the weather and the training facilities there helped my career a lot.
It's a lot hotter, and I suppose you can train all year round.
Right, and being in the heat, most of the races it's real hot, so that helps.
Going back to Seattle, though, that's where your fans are. That's where you did all of your amateur racing. Earlier this year, you won the Seattle Supercross. Now, I have to say, the crowd reaction there was just tremendous. I've never seen anything like it. Tell us what you were feeling, you know, and we'll take a look at some video.
All right, it was pretty much the best night of my life. I got a good start in the main, and the fans, everybody was behind me the whole way, and it worked out real good.
I guess it did, and they were really pumped when you took that checkered flag. It was unbelievable. You know what we need to do now? We need to go back to Washington for another race. This one was the opening round of the 500cc National Championship Series. Let's take a look at the video of that, Larry, and you tell me a little bit about it from your side of the fence.
Okay.
Well, Larry, the way I see it, there are 2 clear-cut favorites in this 500cc National Championship, and I think you probably know who they are.
Yes, I'd have to say it would be Jeff Ward, Team Kawasaki, and Jeff Stanton, the Supercross and 250 Outdoor National Champion.
Right, with a pair of titles to his credit already this year, he's going to be tough. And, of course, Ward is the defending champ. You know, no one even close in the first moto to being in the hunt. Mike Fisher from Santee, California. He finished a distant 3rd. Johnny O'Mara was 4th. But they weren't even close to the winners. Jeff Ward, rider number 1, was awesome. And Larry, I have to say, he was so awesome that most of the onlookers were ready to hand Ward the second moto win without even running a moto. And I got the feeling that there were a lot of people ready to concede the entire season.
Yeah, so do I. Jeff Ward was pretty much the favorite going into the race after winning the 500 crown last year. And he looked real good in practice, and he won the first moto real convincingly.
He did. He took the lead away from Stanton. In fact, took the lead right out of the gate just about, and he was gone. So the opening moto of the opening round of the 500cc National Championship Series went to the defending champion, Jeff Ward, with Jeff Stanton, who's the title hopeful, coming up from the number 2 position. And that was moto number 1. Larry, are you surprised the way Jeff Ward dominated?
Yeah, I was a little surprised. Jeff Stanton's a real good competitor, racing against the 2 all year long. They're usually a lot closer than that, so I was a little surprised.
Yeah, I think so. I think most everyone thought that Stanton, not that Jeff Ward wouldn't win, but maybe that Stanton would be a lot closer to him when the checkered flag came out.
Right, that's my exact feeling.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go back to Washougal and see how they did in moto number 2, whether or not Stanton could keep up with that dominant pace that he set in moto number 1. Now, at the outset of moto number 2, both riders again up front, but this time it was Stanton who got the whole shot, and Jeff Ward was doing the following. Now, Larry, give me your honest opinion. Did you feel Stanton could hold on to that lead?
Well, after watching the first moto, no, I really didn't. I figured Jeff Ward would stay behind him for, half the race and then make quick work of him and go on to win the moto.
Yeah, well, he stayed behind him all right, but only for about 4 or 5 laps. Then he made the pass. Now, why do you suppose he did that? Because usually he would wait in halfway or 3/4 of the way through the race, but he passed him early.
Maybe Jeff Ward was a little nervous, wanted to get by Jeff Stanton and hopefully get a big lead so he could go on to win the race.
Yeah, quite possibly maybe wanting to show his dominance by passing him and running away with the thing. It didn't work out that way. Stanton turned the tables. I guess you could say that he really beat the defending champion, Ward, at his own game. And Stanton later said, and I quote, "Ward bobbled on the back part of the track twice in 1 lap. When Ward does that, he's tired. I thought to myself it was now or never, so I kicked it up a couple of notches and went for the win." And boy, did he ever, and he got it. So Jeff Stanton, Jeff Ward tied in points for the day. The overall win went to Stanton due to his superior performance in moto number 2. I think, Larry, that it's going to be very interesting before this is over.
I think it's going to be real interesting before it's over.
Okay, when we come back, we'll take a look at the 125 class at Washougal, Washington, and we'll find out how Larry Ward made out. Stay with us right here on ESPN. There's a lot more action to studio today. Larry Ward from Team Suzuki, one of the top young motocrossers in the country. Now, we've been talking about motocross at the Washougal National. For the 500 cc's, it was the opening round, but not for the 125s, and that's the race that you rode in.
Right, the 125s is a 15-race series. It was round 8. I dropped down to the 125. I raced the first 7 races on a 250, and Suzuki doesn't make a 500, so I'm riding the 125s.
Of course, the 250 series is over. You finished 6th in that one. Now, dropping down to the 125s, was it a letdown for you or what?
Not really. I'm using it to my advantage. I'm using it for training purposes for next year to get ready for the Supercross season, and if I can help my teammate out to win the championship, I'm going to do that as well.
Of course, your teammate Guy Cooper is in the hunt for the title. He's in 2nd place in the standings. Let's go to Washougal, Washington, find out how Larry Ward did in moto number 1, as well as his teammate Guy Cooper. Now, as we go into this first moto at Washougal in the 125 class, Team Honda's Jean-Michel Bayle from France, 2-time world champ, was on top of the standings. He's the guy that was ahead of Guy Cooper. Mike Kudrowski was running 3rd, and way back in the pack, I guess about 100 points down, was Jeff Matasevich. He was in 4th at the start of the moto. Now, none of the contenders were out front when the moto got underway. Bayle was close. Cooper, though, was quite a ways back.
I was in 3rd place, number 17. Jean-Michel was in 2nd, number 22. And Denny Stevenson, number 27, got the whole shot and was out front.
And what was going on? Because all of a sudden, Stevenson was back a ways, and you and Bayle had started to leave the field.
Right, Denny's been riding injured, and Jean-Michel and I both got by him real fast. And Jean-Michel was riding real well. He had a 4 or 5 second lead going in about the 5th or 6th lap.
He did. Now, another rider on the charge, Mike LaRocco, another one of your teammates. Guy Cooper was moving up. And I think at that point, though, that Cooper never would have caught Bayle. He was really flying. But all of a sudden, Bayle was down on the ground, and it was costly. He tried to get up, picked up his motorcycle, dropped it again. He was obviously in pain, couldn't ride. What kind of a section was that?
It was a really tough section. They were a little smaller than jumps, but a little bigger than whoop-de-doos. And Jean-Michel just got a little ahead of himself and endoed into the 3rd one. And I guess he's hurt pretty bad.
I guess he was. He wasn't able to finish that moto. Guy Cooper put on an incredible charge toward the end. He went by you. You were in the lead at that time. Went by you and went on to take the win and the points lead. So a Suzuki sweep in moto number 1. We had Cooper out front. You were 2nd, Mike LaRocco 3rd. I'd say you guys helped your teammate.
Yeah, I'd say we definitely got the job done.
You did. You all rode very, very well. Now let's go back to Washougal and see how the Suzuki Wrecking Crew did in moto number 2. Now, when the starting gate was dropped in that moto, Jean-Michel Bayle was not on the line. Instead, Larry, Bayle was being transported to the hospital for x-rays. And the end result, according to DeCoster, who works for Honda, a broken forearm. And that's probably going to sideline the Honda star for the rest of the season. But meanwhile, your teammate Mike LaRocco, you guys were out front and having a ball.
Yeah, it was a good day for all of us. We were riding real well, and Cooper came up from behind and went on to win the moto.
Came up from behind, indeed. He was off the pace just like in Moto number 1. The guy was really flying. He caught Matasevich, went around him, caught you, and no offense, Larry, but went by you like, geez, you were almost standing still.
Yeah, Guy, he has a lot to race for. With Jean-Michel being out, he's in the lead in the championship now, and he was a pretty happy man that day.
Well, I'll bet he was. And, probably he was so happy because it was kind of unexpected. If we take a look at that last lap, Mike LaRocco was way out front. I didn't see any way that Cooper could possibly catch him. What happened?
Well, Mike, I guess he was a little tired towards the end of the moto, and the top part of the track is really rough. And he said he swapped out a little bit and almost crashed, and Cooper caught up behind him, and he was a little nervous, and Cooper got by him on the last lap.
Poor Mike LaRocco. That's the kind of season that he's had. But anyhow, for Suzuki, it's a banner day. Cooper, with both moto wins, took overall honors. Mike LaRocco finishing 2nd overall. And, Larry, you completed the Suzuki sweep with 3rd overall. Points in the 125 class look like this. It's Cooper's championship to win.
As long as he doesn't have any problems like Jean-Michel encountered, I think he'll go on to win the championship for Suzuki.
And no one deserves it more than Guy Cooper. And that's the way it went at Washougal, Washington, as seen through the eyes of Suzuki's motocrosser Larry Ward. Larry, I want to thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to be with us today, and wish you, the best of luck for the rest of the season.
Well, thank you. I think the rest of my season's going to go real well.
Okay, very good. Larry Ward, Team Suzuki Motocrosser. Now, stay with us. We have a lot more action to come on Motoworld. The subject for this week's Motorcycle Mechanics Institute Tech Tip is changing your oil. Here's MMI's Dave Kashalik with some helpful hints that will assist you in performing this very essential maintenance task.
Do you love your motorcycle? If you do, one of the best things you can do for it is to keep fresh, clean oil in it at all times. Before changing your oil, warm the motorcycle up for about 15 or 20 minutes. This gets the contaminants suspended in the oil where they can be drained away. Position the motorcycle so the drain plug is at the very bottom. Drain plugs and oil filter bolts can be extremely tight. To loosen them, simply tap several times with a hammer and use a 6-point socket to avoid rounding off their corners. After replacing the oil and oil filter, start the motorcycle and check for leaks. Shut it off and recheck the oil level with the motorcycle in an upright position. Changing your oil on a regular basis is cheap insurance for a long and healthy engine life. For Motorcycle Mechanics Institute, I'm Dave Kashalik.
At the beginning of the season, Canadian Steve Crevier was part of the American Yoshimura Suzuki team. Now, he was released from his Yoshimura contract in June after what was reported as less than stellar performances. Well, last week, Crevier, now running as a privateer, had a chance to run against his old team in the form of his old teammate and fellow Canadian, Miguel Duhamel. Well, Pat Gonzalez reports on the outcome. This is Race City Speedway in Calgary, Alberta, about 200 miles north of the Montana border, and the site of round 4 of the Castrol Canadian Superbike Championship. Number 11, Michel Mercier, would start on the pole position on his Yamaha OW01 after winning Saturday's qualifying race for the Superbikes. Number 1, Steve Crevier on a Kawasaki, would start second. Mercier's teammate, number 21, Pascal Picot, would start third on another of the Fast Racing School Yamaha OW01s. And number 97, Miguel Duhamel, would make his first start in Canada riding the U.S. Yoshimura Suzuki Superbike. Number 11, Michel Mercier, took an early lead, followed closely by number 1, Steve Crevier, in second on the Kawasaki. Number 97, Miguel Duhamel, third on the Yoshimura Suzuki. 228, Jeff Gaynor, the Shannonville winner, fourth on his Suzuki. And number 21, Pascal Picot, rounding out the top 5 on a Yamaha. On lap 3, Duhamel put his Yoshimura Suzuki into second and started to close on Mercier. At the halfway point, Duhamel took the lead, with Mercier in second, number 1, Steve Crevier, close behind in third, 999, Jacques Gannett, fourth, and number 21, Picot, back in fifth. But a lap later, Mercier put his Yamaha back into the lead, moving around Duhamel's Suzuki. With 5 laps to go, number 1, Steve Crevier, made his move, taking over second place and pushing Duhamel to third. Crevier got around Mercier to take the lead just a lap later, but like Duhamel, Crevier's lead was short-lived.
and Mercier moved back around on the long drag strip straightaway as the riders went to turn 1. At the checkered flag, it was Michel Mercier winning his 3rd Superbike National of the season. Number 1, Steve Crevier, came home in 2nd, giving the Canadian Kawasaki effort its best finish of the year. Miguel Duhamel took 3rd on the Yoshimura Suzuki, while number 21, Pascal Picotte, finished 4th, and 228, Jeff Gaynor, took 5th. Michel Mercier now leads the standings with 53 points, followed by teammate Pascal Picotte with 44. Jacques Gannett is a distant 3rd with 35. The riders now head across the Rockies out to Canada's west coast to Westwood Motorsport Park outside of Vancouver for round number 5. At Race City Speedway in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, this is Pat Gonzalez reporting.